That night, he spoke nothing. No sound was heard, not the wind, not nature, not the torn edges of the war tent, not even Marcus Aurelius. It was as if all of Rome had sunk into silence. A dim candle burned. Its flame trembled. That trembling flame spoke volumes to those who were wise. But even that flicker could not shake the weight of the gold chests lying before him. Rome's wealth, Marcus's treasure, all the splendor standing before an emperor, all the riches. But Marcus did not see splendor when he looked at those chests. He was not an emperor who loved gold, nor had he ever been. He saw only a burden, one he had carried on the back of his empire, cold, heavy, and silent. Gold shimmered, but its light blinded. That shine stripped wisdom from the hearts of the wise. Wealth has no voice. You cannot hear it speak. It settles quietly onto your shoulders, slowly binds you to itself. No matter how wise you are, you cannot escape it. And a man never realizes the moment he becomes a prisoner. He cannot understand it. Marcus realized it that night. He finally saw it clearly. He had never taken pleasure in any of it. For years, everyone had placed things upon him. Every person he met, every commander in his armies, every senator he listened to. Each one had handed him a responsibility, power, prestige, expectation, and the heaviest of all, wealth. That wealth outweighed the others. As gold grows, the man holding it begins to shrink, because the greater the wealth, the more a man's wisdom diminishes. For everything you possess binds you a little more, another chain, another link, and Marcus understood this. Marcus Aurelius did not hear the voice of gold, but he heard the voice of the chain. He knew it grew stronger, harder to break with every passing day, and he wanted to be free of it. The sound of that chain was like a thin blade slicing through the silence. Amid the war, he thought of his soldiers' faces. He summoned them into his mind for a moment, their feet cracking in the snow, their bones freezing beneath the rain, their breaths uncertain of seeing the next sunrise. He laid all of this before himself like a philosopher, like a teacher revealing a harsh truth. Then he remembered his palace chamber, warm, safe, covered in gold. He lived a life far removed from his soldiers. And for a wise man, such a contrast does not elevate, it diminishes. Because Stoicism means hardship. It means discipline. These two images could not exist in the same mind. One was noise, the other truth. So he stayed silent, said nothing. Marcus knew silence confronts a man. It corners him, forces him to think honestly. Silence strips a man bare, drags him toward what is true. And when a man is stripped bare, he cannot look away. Silence makes him face what he avoids. And what Marcus saw that night was this: I do not own this wealth. This wealth owns me. He closed the chest. The sound of the lid falling was the only real sound in the war tent, and even that sound felt heavy. Marcus knew an emperor's strength is not measured by what he possesses. An emperor's strength is measured by what he can let go of, because letting go is facing truth. Letting go is not weakness, but awakening. Letting go is a return to oneself. Before placing this wealth into the hands of his soldiers, one short thought passed through him. Wealth is not my battle. For this war had nothing to do with the barbarians outside. This war was with the weight inside him, and that weight had a name: riches. Marcus Aurelius made his decision that night, in silence, without telling anyone, without seeking approval. The greatest power an emperor can possess is the power to let go. So he would give all his wealth to his soldiers. Rome's shock was nothing more than noise. The general's questions, mere echoes. The Senate's anger, irrelevant. Because in his silence, the decision was already made. Gold cannot protect me. Gold cannot define me. Gold cannot rule me. And thus, the richest man in Rome became the freest man in Rome. In a single night, when the lid of the gold chest closed, the tent grew darker. In an instant, the entire space sank into shadow, as if even the light could not endure the weight of this decision, as if it had no strength against it. In that moment, Marcus Aurelius felt another truth. Wealth does not elevate a man. It never puts him in a better place. Wealth enlarges a man's weakest parts. It nourishes them. And those weak parts eventually overshadow the good in him, because gold slips into the mind quietly. And once it enters, removing it demands war, a brutal war. Marcus knew this. He was prepared for that battle and certain he would win. An emperor carries many burdens, but the most insidious of them is wealth. That silent enemy slowly rots a man from within. An enemy army is visible. Poverty is a blade, you can feel it. But wealth settles like a fog over the mind. It clouds judgment and makes truth harder to see. This fog does not fill a man's soul. It empties it. It drains all wisdom, all spirit, quietly, without warning. Marcus had seen its traces for years. He had long been aware of it. On the palace walls, in the Senate's debates, in the eyes of his generals, and most of all, within himself. He saw those traces, that fog, most clearly in his own mind. Every time he thought of gold, something diminished, something melted, something dissolved, something disappeared. His own firmness. For wealth grows two emotions inside a man: fear and dependency. Fear, the fear of losing it. Dependency, the hunger for more. When these two meet, a man no longer belongs to himself. He belongs to his wealth. And Marcus Aurelius refused to become such a man. That is why he remained silent, weighing each thought, one by one. Does this gold give me power, or does it steal from me? The answer was heavy, but clear. Gold did not grow his strength, it grew his shadow. And an emperor cannot live in shadow. Outside, the footsteps of his soldiers echoed, heavy steps sinking into wet mud. Those steps carried not wealth, but truth. They earned everything by fighting, by blood, by cold, by hunger. But the emperor's wealth had not been earned. It had been granted. And that was the difference. The soldiers carried reality. The emperor carried weight. This thought struck Marcus like a nail in the mind. The silence deepened. Nothing stirred except the trembling flame of the candle. He opened the chest again, scooped a handful of gold. Its coldness seeped into his fingers. But this coldness was not like steel on the battlefield. This coldness struck directly at the soul. This is not mine, he thought. It merely rests with me. A man always forms a bond with what he believes he owns. But sometimes the things we think we own begin to own us. And Marcus admitted this truth to himself that night. Wealth did not serve him. Wealth was taking something from him. That is why the idea of giving it all away was not some sudden passing thought. This decision was a truth that had been gathering in silence for years. It simply found the opportunity to rise to the surface that night. He clenched the gold in his hand. It slipped through his fingers, and the sound it made as it hit the ground was the sound of a fracture inside an emperor's mind. Marcus Aurelius understood something. A man's true worth is not shown by what he owns. True worth is shown by what he can give up. And that night, for the first time, he truly felt what freedom meant. Because freedom is not found in what you possess, but in your ability to abandon what seeks to rule you. Marcus would abandon the gold. As the first light of dawn slipped through the edge of the tent, Marcus Aurelius still hadn't slept. He was awake fully, sharply, completely. Because sleep deceives the mind. For a man carrying wealth, Sleep is nothing more than a brief trick, a momentary pause that lets the weight fade for a little while. But once that pause ends, the weight returns, pressing again upon the shoulders, blurring the mind, weakening the spine. It doesn't matter whether the man is a sage, a general, or a slave. Whoever is owned by wealth will have his mind clouded. It becomes a hump on the back, growing heavier with time. The morning preparations of the soldiers echoed through the camp, the clash of metal against metal, the heavy sound of boots sinking into mud, all of it mixing with the cold Roman dawn. These sounds were the sounds of truth. These sounds did not lie. The battlefield was real. Hunger was real. Exhaustion was real. And death was always the closest, the sharpest, the most unquestionable truth of them all. But the golden walls of the palace, they were curtains built to hide reality. Walls constructed to shield tired souls from the weight of truth. The glow of wealth existed for one purpose, to conceal the shadows. But no wall, no barrier can hide truth forever. Marcus knew this, because with every passing year in the palace, he had felt something disappear, a man's connection to himself. The palace softens a man. It numbs his emotions, wraps his thoughts in fog. But the war tent? In the tent, nothing could be hidden. No man, no emperor, no mind could deceive itself. There, truth stood naked. There was no gold in the tent, only reality, no safety. Anything could happen at any moment. When he looked at the faces of his soldiers, he saw this clearly. Skin cracked by rain, eyes reddened by sleepless nights. A strange blend of fear and courage lingering in their gaze. Marcus realized something. He did not want to deceive himself anymore. Their lives were shaped by struggle. Their strength was forged through labor, pain, and sacrifice. But Marcus's wealth? It was nothing more than a burden thrown upon an emperor. No battle had been fought for it. No price had been paid. And this injustice gnawed at him in silence. An emperor does not grow strong by having more than his people, but by carrying the same weight as them. And Marcus felt that he had lost this balance. The mere act of thinking about gold was exhausting, because wealth pulls a man in the wrong direction. It does not carry him to where he is, but to where he imagines he should be. His soldiers had no such illusions. They clung only to the day that was given to them, to the next breath, to the next step. There was no room for false hopes on the battlefield, only truth. And truth is always harsh. When Marcus looked at the gold chests, he thought of his warriors. He compared the burden they carried with the burden placed upon him, and that comparison silenced him because he knew. The palace's wealth exists for those who wish to forget the truth of war. But he did not forget. He could not. The things an emperor forgets destroy the empire. If the shine of gold can overshadow truth even for a moment, then that gold becomes the enemy of the man who holds it. Marcus Aurelius might have felt powerful sitting in the palace, but in the tent, gold meant nothing. In the presence of war, gold went silent. Comparing his life to that of his soldiers revealed something painful. They gained through fighting. His gold grew without any battle, and as it grew, it diminished him. This is why giving away his wealth was not a mere idea. It was a necessity. When the mind is pressured, a man does not escape. He approaches the truth. Marcus Aurelius looked at the muddy path his soldiers walked. Then he turned to the gold in front of him. The gulf between the two had become unbearable. And in that moment, the decision sharpened. If wealth hides the truth, then wealth must be abandoned. For becoming the strongest man in the empire does not begin with owning everything, but with sacrificing whatever weakens you. The war tent had spoken. Marcus simply listened. During that long night seated before the chest of gold, Marcus Aurelius realized something else. Wealth does not kill a man, but it dulls the sharpest part of him. It destroys the very strength that defines him. It erodes his trust in himself. Gold does not strike you. Gold deceives you, and that deception, that is where the true danger lies. Only those who are truly wise can perceive this danger. What corrupts a man is not the enemy, not victory, not defeat. What corrupts a man is comfort. Comfort kills a man's potential. Comfort spreads like an invisible poison, slow, quiet, unnoticed, but it rusts the steel inside a person, stealing every achievement he could have obtained, silently, insidiously. Marcus had noticed that the more his wealth grew, the heavier his movements became. His thoughts widened, yet lost their sharpness. His decisions took longer. His steps grew slower, because his mind had grown accustomed to carrying weight, but not the kind of weight soldiers carried on the battlefield. This weight sank inward. It got trapped inside, and over time, it rotted the thoughts from within. His soldiers did not experience this. They fought hunger, they fought cold, they fought fear, but they did not fight wealth, because wealth is a dangerous enemy, invisible, silent, and unpredictable, in whose heart it will corrupt next. This is why every time Marcus met the gaze of the gold, he felt something inside him diminish, and he realized something else. A man grows through battle, but the one who thinks he grows through wealth is actually shrinking. This thought became a truth within his mind. Gold did not elevate an emperor. It only built walls around him, and within those walls, a man eventually loses the sound of his own voice. Marcus knew this. For years he had watched how the palace walls softened him, the praises spoken to him, the authority he held, each one like a file, shaving away the edges of his mind. But in the war tent, truth sharpened itself again. The icy air, the heavy smell of mud, the silent footsteps of death. Everything kept a man awake, alive, cautious. And gold, in the middle of all this, felt like a foreigner, something that didn't belong to this land. A weight too heavy to carry, too useless to hold in the heart of war. When Marcus Aurelius took the gold into his hand again, he asked himself, "Is this truly mine, or have I become a part of it?" The answer was dark, but unmistakably clear. I am not the master of this gold. The greatest war within an emperor is never against the enemy outside, but against the chains inside, and Marcus knew he had to break one of those chains. From the outside, wealth looked like power, but from within, it was a shackle. Thinking of the silent march of his soldiers made the decision even sharper. Their burden was real, his was false. So distributing his wealth was not a gift, not a gesture, not an act of generosity. It was liberation from himself, from his chains, from his weakness. That night, Marcus did not simply make a decision. He severed a bond. And when an emperor cuts his bonds, he is reborn. When morning came, Marcus Aurelius opened the flap of his tent. Cold air rushed inside. The sharp wind striking an emperor's face felt like a truth being spoken aloud. It was the voice of reality, raw, silent, merciless. The soldiers were preparing, strapping on armor, stepping heavily through the mud. Their steps were the rhythm of war. Each step was a price paid. Each step was a movement one step closer to death. Watching them, a thought passed through Marcus. My wealth should belong to their footsteps. There was no gold on the soldiers' faces, no grandeur, only truth. True exhaustion, true pain, true courage. This was real strength. A man attained his true power only when he carried such realities within himself. They shivered by the fire before dawn, and Marcus, in those same hours, would wake in warm palace chambers. That contrast rested on the emperor's shoulders like an invisible weight, a quiet shame. Marcus despised this imbalance. He never saw himself as above his soldiers. He was one of Rome's soldiers in spirit, but his life did not reflect that truth, and that contradiction filled him with shame. But this shame did not weaken an emperor. It sharpened him, for awareness hardens a man like stone. Marcus stood firmly inside this awareness. Each soldier placed his life before Rome, and he, meanwhile, stored Rome's accumulated wealth in chests. This contradiction sat in the corner of his mind like an open wound. Wealth made one forget the reality of war. In the palace, a man grows soft. Noise, praise, crowds, all of it numbs the mind. But in the tent, nothing is soft. Everything is harsh. Everything is heavy. When Marcus Aurelius looked at his soldiers, he realized something else. They were not wealthy, but they were free. Freedom's price was pain, but pain was real. The emperor, however, grew less free with every possession he gained. The more you own, the more you are quietly bound. What you own draws you away from who you are. It separates you from yourself. The soldiers carried their battles. Marcus carried his own. But between the two battles was one crucial difference. Their enemy stood outside. His stood within. The decision to give away his wealth was the result of this inner war. It was not an emotional impulse, not a moment of forgetfulness, not a sudden wave of mercy. It was an emperor's attempt to restore his own justice. Because Marcus did not apply justice only to enemies, but also to the flawed sides of himself. When he began handing out every treasure brought before him, the look he saw in the soldiers' eyes was surprise. But that surprise slowly turned into respect, a respect that could never be bought with gold. From that moment forward, a truth became absolute for Marcus. The wealth was never mine. The wealth existed to keep them alive. At that moment, the empire grew quieter. But that silence was not emptiness. It was truth. The greatest sacrifice an emperor makes is not for his throne, but for the war he fights in his own mind. And that morning, Marcus Aurelius began to lighten the weight of his own thoughts. He began to free his mind from its burden. The decision to give away his wealth was not a simple act. It was not closing a door. It was not opening a chest and passing gold from one hand to another. It was far from simple. It was the untying of the darkest knot within a man, untying it and finally breathing again. When Marcus Aurelius let go of the gold, he felt an emptiness in his hand, and that emptiness, in the beginning, it hurts, because a man grows accustomed to what he owns. Everything he grows accustomed to slowly becomes part of his identity. No matter how wise you are still human. You still feel. You still carry human weaknesses. That is why letting go is tearing away. And tearing always hurts. But Marcus knew, what hurts is what is right. If the path you are walking burns you, never leave it. You are on the correct one. But if the path keeps you comfortable, then the path is wrong, because no success is born in comfort. Success demands pain. Only through pain does anything real emerge. When he opened the chests to distribute them to his soldiers, the gold in his palm felt unbelievably light. So light it resembled guilt, because gold held no weight next to the heaviness of war, next to their suffering. It was nothing but a silent stone, a metal valued only because men chose to value it. For an emperor, the greatest test is not giving away what he holds. The greatest test is accepting that what he holds is harming him. Realizing it is one thing, but correcting it, that is the difficult part. Marcus accepted it, and so he let go. While distributing the wealth, he noticed something. The soldiers' hands did not tremble. They took the gold not to possess it, but to survive. In their eyes, he saw no greed, no hunger for more, only the will to continue living. And when Marcus saw this, he understood how unnecessary his own wealth truly was. Gold gives strength to the one who needs it, but to the one who does not, it gives only weight. It fills the mind while emptying the spirit. Even the simple thank yous the soldiers whispered deepened the silence inside Marcus, because each thank you broke one more link in the chain around his mind. Giving away his wealth was not a loss. It was not a sacrifice. It was not an attempt to strengthen the empire. It was purification. As he let go, he became lighter. As he became lighter, he became sharper. And as he became sharper, he returned to himself. Wealth pulls a man away from his center. It drags him outward. It increases his value in the eyes of others, but grows the weight he carries inside. Marcus Aurelius saw this distortion, and he knew there was only one way to correct it: to let go. Slowly, silently. Not in front of the world, but within himself. With every chest he closed, the silence inside the tent grew deeper. In that depth, there was no fear, no regret, only clarity. Wealth did not make me strong. Wealth made me forget. A man is buried most deeply beneath what he owns, and so Marcus refused to be buried. For an emperor, the greatest gain is finding himself in the moment he loses what he holds. That night, Marcus Aurelius was not distributing his riches. He was distributing his burden. And for the first time, freedom truly breathed. When Marcus Aurelius closed the last chest, a different silence filled the tent. Not the silence of a man who had lost, but the silence of a man who had been freed. It was the calm of his soul. The gold was gone, but the weight had lifted. And for the first time, an emperor felt truly light. By letting go, he had grown stronger. By giving away, he had risen higher. Because a man is not freed by what he owns, but by what he can walk away from. That night, Marcus Aurelius ceased to be the richest man in Rome and became the strongest, quietly. If you saw even a small piece of yourself in this story, subscribe and leave just one sentence in the comments. True strength is the ability to let go